Welcome back, everybody. Welcome to Tarot Journeys with Guy. How's everybody doing? Glad to see you all come back to our little tarot space. I hope you enjoyed yesterday's reading around the AI and some of the information that came up there. Also, we did the last of our 3 cards, series of 4, to draw out the zodiac. And so actually today, what we were going to do is we were going to open up the last 2 and do the whole zodiac, but I thought we still had 3 more cards to open up. So we're going to only open up 1 card today. That's going to be kind of like the closing, or it's like our message for right now, but also, yeah, it's going to be part of the zodiac spread. And then this card we're going to open up with it, and that will be sort of like advice of the whole reading, right? And then today, what we're going to read about is we're going to take a look into the fundamental energetic and spiritual shifts in relationships. Now, and many of us are well aware of how things have fundamentally changed in the realm of relationships, whether people are in long-term relationships or whether it's people that have difficulties finding relationships, young people entering into their adult world, all of that. And I know many people at home, they have young people in their lives, whether it's grandkids or actual kids and things. And right, and so this can be helpful. It can also help us understand a little bit more, confirm what some of us are picking up. Very confusing times. Super confusing for a lot of people. Fundamentally, this shift is not necessarily just an engineered thing, right? Like a socially engineered plot as a part of an agenda, because it's partly that. Remember, if you remember in previous readings where I was talking about how these deep staters, these bad actors, the dark siders, they've co-opted social movements, grassroots movements, naturally occurring human events, let's call them, right? These fundamental shifts in relationship are also a part of that. This is a natural flow energetically that civilization and humanity has to go through and has gone through many times in the past. So it's very important, right? Very important to understand and see. My thing, I guess, is really to sort of help direct people towards what is natural within us and not necessarily, well, and to detach from this contrived materialistic view that is so present, right? Okay, so let's open this guy up. It's just 1 card. 6 of Pentacles. 6 of Pentacles, interesting, this card, like it actually shows like somebody in a humanitarian effort, a charitable effort to help others. That's with the scales and the people that are at his feet. They're sick, begging, impoverished, can't look after themselves, that kind of thing. So it's like this, it's a kind of a sign, and it goes back, if you watch the previous 4 episodes at the beginning where we opened up those 3 cards. This kind of relates. This relates to kind of what we're talking about, because a lot of us that are doing this kind of thing, a lot of you at home do have this genuine desire to help others, to be of that nature when it comes to your fellow humans, right? Not just your family and your friends, but just there's a general compassion, right? And that's something, I guess, in a way, like, I mean, the sign for me has always been, especially during the whole lockdown and the shadow war that's been taking place, that's come to the surface, has been compassion. Don't lose compassion, right? Maintaining, like, the dialogue of compassion, super important. Like, people don't talk about it enough. Because people are being hardened. Like, human reality in many cities all over the world is hardening. It's hard to witness what's taking place, right? In some manners, but also it's this thing of detachment so that you can be there when it's genuinely needed for another. So it's also this sort of registering, like, when you can help and extend yourself and when not to. when to be in that place. Like an old adage, in order to look after other people, you have to look after yourself, right? So that's perfect. That's kind of an interesting card for the whole read, right? So that's our 13th card of our zodiac spread that we're going to read tomorrow. Okay. Fundamental shifts in relationship. Very broad. We're talking about human civilization. We're talking about how it touches sort of all of us in the world right now. Doesn't matter kind of where you are. These changes are taking place, right? It's the nature of the awakening as well. Interesting card, actually. When I used to do readings, well, I kind of do still do readings for people, but not like how I used to, where I have clients come in every day and such, right? This card, especially if you talk about relationships, and this card comes up reversed, to me, it's a form of independence, but yet, because like the 9 of Pentacles, the right side, like forward towards the client, towards you guys, will represent a certain level of independence. It's financial independence, financial freedom in a sense, right? But this is sort of like, not necessarily ill-gotten independence, but like independence that's distorted. Independence that falls short in some ways, right? So, but that's part of it. It's like a level of individual independence that people are trying to strike in their lives. It's not just women, it's men too. It's everybody, right? But it's definitely around women. This is a female in this card. Also, when this card pops up, when you talk about relationships, especially with the sun above it, it always kind of goes back to relationship with the self, which sounds a little cliche, but there is a deep truth to this. And so like fundamentally, humanity has to restore its prime relationship with self. That's part of the connection to its relationship to divinity. So this is what's shifting, right? So it's very important, right? So it's a fundamental. So, and I think people have to kind of realize that when the internet starts to become involved, it's like jumping on a highway, like or jumping into a sports car on the highway. Whereas before, you might have been walking or, even just like on a bike. It's totally different. Everything gets sped up. It can be overwhelming. And that's kind of also what's taking place. People are being overwhelmed by all the stuff that's coming into the world around relationships and identity. Young people having a crazy time, but it's part of the adjustment that's going on. And so people have to have patience also. Us that have some life experience, I guess, and those that are in healthy relationships, those of us that have a healthy relationship with self, we need to share it. We need to share it with other people, what our thoughts are. It doesn't matter if we agree or disagree about things. It's more important to communicate. It's more important to get that dialogue going again. That's what's helped humanity in the past. This is what's helping us now. So that's kind of what's going on, right? So it is this fundamental energetic shift first and foremost, not necessarily a social engineering ploy. Even though that's part of it, the psyop, disinformation, demoralizing the civilization, creating a revolution. So yeah, that's part of it. The bigger revolution, the bigger shift is the energetic, is the spiritual. So humans will get through this, just as humans have gotten through many other challenges, crises, catastrophes. This is different. This is a spiritual shift that the whole civilization is going through. We're moving into, for people that subscribe to astrology, right? We're moving into, or we're in the beginnings of moving into a new astrological era, which that era, the one we're moving from, the age of Pisces, lasted for approximately 2,000 years, plus or minus. And we're moving into another age that's going to be plus or minus 2,000 years more, right? So it's a long periods of time. This is how civilization changes, how it shifts. Yeah, because I know they're pushing on a whole bunch of things that for normal people, of course we want some of these things, but they're using some of these notions against us, like equality. That's become a catchphrase for these guys. Inclusion, equality, diversity. Yeah, diversity, equity, inclusion, DEI. Right? It's in the States. Up in Canada, it's a little different, but same thing. These policies were placed by non-government organizations, unelected bodies, people that are influencing business and academics and medicine and politics. And they're inserting these policies, and that's part of it where it's coming from. But they got the idea from studying society and looking at what was happening. Huge fundamental shift in human culture happened in the 60s, one of them. Really big. But I really don't know. I've studied this quite a bit, but it got co-opted very quick. So I really do believe that at the end of the 50s and the 60s, this kind of grassroots cultural shift, not so much a revolution, but a shift, right? But it was a revolution in a sense, started to take place, and it got co-opted and got coerced and got engineered. Yeah, like two areas that are really stuck right now is the young and the old. The two kind of angles of society right now are really kind of in a big flux, right? Which is interesting. There's a lot of, there's a big gap. And I think stuff like this helps lessen the gap. Not sure though, right? But that's kind of part of it. And the two need to kind of meet in some ways to sort of see both sides of the view. We kind of need to show each other what's going on, right? But it's an age-old dilemma. Neither side are open to each other. So we have to be open. I honestly do think that this is one of the most important issues that humanity has to deal with. Because this is one of those things that really shows that we're on the brink. I gotta be honest with you. It really is the basis of how humans get into the world. And if it is broken up any further, humans are going to have a very difficult time. So, and that's the thing about the psychic work and about the spiritual side, is that these things come forth so that people can make the shift. Sometimes predictions fail because they're put out there and people resonate with it, and you don't want the prediction to come true, so it changes. Our energetic faculty, our ability collectively is potent. We can shift things very easily and readily, but it needs to be aligned, needs proper alignment. The way that we've been cohabitating and codependence, right? So independence versus codependence, this has made us sick. This is also what's created a lot of issues. This is why a lot of people don't want to be with other people. Makes sense? It's kind of understandable. And like I said, I think humans are going to get by, because that's also a little bit what these cards actually talk about. I mean, the Seven of Pentacles is sort of like, you got to be patient with the process. We're in the middle of it. You have to prune the vineyard in order for it to be prosperous. Right? And some of us are forming new relationships. We are being put into situations where, yes, new things are being presented, new people. But yet, see, we're not only just talking about romantic relationships. We're talking about all relationship, our relationship with the world around us, other people, the relationship with the earth, our relationship with the internet, the relationship with society. It goes on and on and on, right? That's a big thing. So it's being reordered. So we've spent many decades in this kind of corrupted state, and it's created a lot of division. So this idea that the way that monogamy has worked for thousands of years ended up actually is what's compelled us away from it, which is right. And people, everyday people wouldn't think that way, but yet it makes sense because it was sick. the behavioral patterning around it and what was being passed on is sick. That's what needs to be healed. Yeah, our sense of male and female is changing. And I'm not talking about this thing with, like, it is identity, but not kind of how what's being pushed in the media. But it's sort of like, because, you know, I grew up in the era, like my father and his father were hardcore, like hard, non-emotional. And I grew up in the era where people started to talk about how, well, men are also have emotion. It's not the same as women, but yet, yes, there is emotion there, right? And that kind of dialogue. And it's another thing that's been co-opted. Now we've got a whole bunch of men running around acting like women, a whole bunch of women acting like men. This is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the other part of it where men coming from that lineage of emotionally stunted men, their fathers, and violence and emotional and physical abuse, mental abuse being passed down, and then stopping it and engaging, especially the females in our lives differently. And no matter how, and it's tough. It's hard when you have to face that kind of stuff because it's the only way it changes, right? But it's partly what's happening. Same thing with women. Women's ideas around men are changing for good and negative, right? Same with men. So we're seeing each other differently. Let's keep it on the positive though, right? Because it is becoming more of this, openness and more of in the higher mind and more in the heart and not so much physical, right? So humanity is moving. It is progressing in a sense. It's moving energetically. Some of us are here to push that growth. Oh, that's a good card, actually. The end of a cycle. The death of a cycle. So that's what we're dealing with. End of a cycle that needs to happen, right? So that's a good thing. Okay, so that's pretty clear. I'm actually kind of glad to hear that. See, it's funny, like partly the reason why I'm doing this videos and stuff, because it helps me as well. It's so much better. It's hard to do readings for yourself. So we're getting a lot of confirmation. We're getting a lot of just keep going, keeping on kind of deal, right? That's what tarot is good for. It's good for affirmations. It's good for confirmations. Trust your intuition. Trust it. It is powerful. It is potent. It's right. It's right on all the time usually. It's more us that when we're not listening. What else do we need to know about these fundamental shifts, these energetic shifts, these spiritual shifts in relationships on a large level, on a civilization level? What else do we need to know? Okay, so many of us are acquainted with this idea that we've come into this, we've been born into this reality as part of our spiritual purpose, part of the spiritual lesson plan. It's the quickening, and that's kind of what this is. This guy is hung in the tree for the spiritual purpose of creating the spiritual form and breaking the everyday form. There needs to be some kind of sacrifice. This guy's holding the spiritual pose like yoga. And we can get really deep into this card. There's a lot of symbols in it, right? But that's kind of what it's about, right? Breaking up, finding new ground, finding new sort of parameters, new ways, new parameters though, new formats for relating to one another, for new relationships, right? New forms of relationships. We have to get used to the fact that people aren't, like some of us aren't going to fall in love once and marry somebody for the rest of their lives. Some people do go through many marriages, relationships, major ones, happily. Like it's part of it. See, and it's like, right? And getting over some of the taboos and some of the things that have been, false. And false contracts, right? Breaking the false contracts that a lot of us feel that we're under. Detachment is a very key part. People need to learn detachment. I don't think a lot of people understand that part of it and aren't very detached. A lot of things are surface level with people. Even people that think they're awakened. There's the the internet has created like a kind of a surface level reality with people. And so that's part of it, is like getting back into an in-depth scenario. But I mean, a lot of people hang on to relationships that don't serve them. Restoring a healthy relationship with self is always the key to any kind of relationship dilemma. That's perfect. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us on Tarot Journeys. I hope you come tomorrow, where we're going to do the zodiac spread. So make sure you hit the subscribe button, leave a comment, share videos, share it on different social medias, share it around. That's how things are going to move. And thank you so much, and bye-bye.